Hello and welcome to FYRSYD Conversations, a show that aims to ignite positive change within the communities in which we operate. And today we are back again with the good doctor, Dr. Carlos Khumalo, and the advocate Ramafala Ramatsosa. Gentlemen, welcome back to our platform.
Thanks, Mandla. Thanks a lot, my brother.
Afternoon, Mandla. It's a pleasure to be back here.
Yes, and seemingly our previous podcast was getting some positive feedback, from friends and, other people that were watching it. And I get a sense that some people want us to continue with the information sharing sessions that we have here. So all the best, gentlemen, and thank you for being part of this whole thing, because we started it abruptly, and I think we're going to get there in due course.
Yes, sir.
It's FYRSYD, Mandla. The name speaks to the entire background and the reason why we exist. You remember, back in the days, the elders used to share knowledge.
Yes.
And impart wisdom around the fire. So
yes.
That's why the podcast is called FYRSYD.
Yeah.
That's the impartation of knowledge around the fire. We might not have the...
that's nice. Now we get the proper background. That's good.
This is where knowledge has to be imparted.
Yes.
Around the fire late at night when people are now unwinding and thinking about the events of the day. That's how Africans used to do their things. So people must understand when we say it's FYRSYD conversations around the fire. There will be a little meat there, and
people will be sharing.
People will be sharing.
Storytelling.
Storytelling,
just before bed.
Yeah, and then another one of those issues that we need to attend to: sexual exploitation of minors.
Yes, sir.
We have a huge problem. It's not necessarily a domestic problem. It's a global problem.
Yes, sir.
And it has also seen to the trafficking of young women and children, and it has just brought distraught to the family unit. And I feel that it's one of those things that we need to deal with, without, being easy on the perpetrators,
Yeah, you know what, Mandla, this is a very, very important topic to discuss, precisely because this issue of exploitation of minors and children is not peculiar to us here in South Africa. It is indeed a global phenomenon where children are being exploited for very nefarious intents indeed.
Yes.
And often, what hurts the most when you think about it is that often the people who betray the children are the very people that have been entrusted into their hands.
Yes.
The legal guardians, and sometimes as well the parents of the children, who out of benefiting financially or for whatever reason, see it fit to do that.
Yeah, sorry, Doc, if you can just straighten the microphone, because it seems to be facing to the right. Yeah, you can just... Yeah, and then there's a little knob which you can twist so that it holds a little bit tighter.
I guess I'm trying to figure it out, Mandla.
You can even you can move the muffler away. It's fine because there's no wind here.
Yeah, but then I'm trying to. This one here.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah. No. Just try not to look too much away from it because it's still facing that side. But we'll sort it out.
Yes, sir.
And there are various forms, of abuse of minors, because you look at people employing children who are not of legal age, people abusing children, sexually molesting them, and doing, all the kinds of things that children should not have to experience at that age, which has been deemed to be illegal for them to partake in such things. So what is your take on that, Doc?
Well, Mandla, my take, as a person, as a human being, is that, to do that to a child really reflects bad on us as a society in terms of our moral values, our ethics, and, the concept of Ubuntu as well, which I hope later on to unpack as we go with Ntate Ramatsosa. So, I don't know right now whether one should go right into it, but I think that, there's always a background that needs to be established.
Yes,
we need to put the background there. And I don't know whether Ntate Ramatsosa, would you like to give, our audience and listeners, some background to this issue, or should I be the one handling it?
No, it's fine, Doc. I'll chip in and then maybe you will chip in into it. Maybe, Mandla, what our people need to know now is to now check as to, let's maybe give a definition into this child exploitation. What is it that we are talking about when we talk about child exploitation? So that it now gives meaning to people, or it gives direction to our listeners as to what exactly are we talking about. Now, we would understand that in South Africa, when we speak about a child, we speak about anyone who's under the age of 18 years, because now the law defines them as minors. It means that those are people who cannot make decisions on their own. So anyone who finds themselves under the age of 18 years is a person that, in terms of the law of the country, the law says this person needs a major person or an adult if they have to make any decision with regard to them. Now, you would find out that there would now be a child who's 16 years, between 16 and 18 years. Let me stick into that particular category. When you look at them, they are, or when somebody looks at them, would assume that they are already old and whatnot. Now, then they want them to end up doing things that they know that ordinarily a child at that particular age would not do them. Now, again, the exploitation aspect of it comes into a situation where a person knows that ordinarily this person that they are engaging with, whatever that they are engaging into, they are not engaging into it, appreciating and understanding what is it that they are doing. Because once you start to do something that you don't have a full appreciation of it, but you have been coerced to believe that you've got the appreciation and understanding and the desire to engage and involve yourself into that, in that particular aspect. Now, that's the exploitation part of it, to say now, there would be a person who's an adult who's taking advantage. Maybe in a simplified manner is, say, taking advantage of children to do things that ordinarily they would not do them. Now, like you have earlier on indicated, that there would then be different forms of this particular exploitation. You would have the sexual exploitation of minors, you would have of children, let me put it that way.
Yes.
Find that the children are also exploited in terms of being engaged or involved in what one would call child labor. You would find in a situation that children are also culturally exploited by people using culture. And I'll later on explain what is it that I'm talking about when I say that people would now involve the issue of culture in the exploitation of children. But predominantly, what we now find over and above the issue of child labor, over and above the issue of sexual exploitation of children, something that we are fortunate in our country that it has not yet visited us, and we cannot say maybe it's not going to visit us. In African countries, you will find out that now children are being converted in what we call mercenaries, or you find out that they are put in the forefront of wars by the people who are involved in wars. And they are now made child soldiers and whatnot. Some of them even exploited, like we've spoken about labor aspect of it. Find out that they are turned into in what in South Africa we call zamazamas, illegal mining, involved in the illegal mining of diamonds and whatnot. Fortunately, in our country, we have not yet reached that particular stage. And over and above that, we have now also seen the recent trend of child trafficking, which also falls under this aspect of the exploitation of children, and I'm going to say by the system. If I say the system, I don't mean the governance, but by the people who would now be majors. You understand? And in some instances, you find out that there's also aspects where children have been are killed, and their parts have been harvested for people who want to use those particular parts for rituals. There is that particular trend in our society. It might not be rife, but we know that there's also that particular aspect where children would be exploited, that their parts would be taken for whatever purpose. Doctor would also maybe later on explain in as far as it relates to the issue of sexual predation or sexual exploitation you find in other instances where adults, well, now it's much better as compared to previously where people thought that they could cure HIV through sleeping with children. So those are the aspects that I think this particular podcast today will be dealing with, Mandla.
Okay.
Yes.
Doc, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think that there's quite a mouthful that our learned friend, the attorney, has put on the table. And I'm just going to try and chip in, in between the cracks to try and just fill the space. To give it a background, like we said, that exploitation can happen at the hands of a loved one, a family, a friend, someone that the child, really trusts. But what we have seen is that there's a process of targeting children, right? Which I call predation. Predation is where you target a child or you groom a child for the purpose of later on exploiting them. Now, what is this grooming, in fact? The grooming describes a process that happens over a period of time, where the adult, in this case, the perpetrator, knows what he wants to do in advance. So it's premeditated. So he enters into this relationship with a child or a minor, sometimes over your social media platforms, like Facebook and so on and so forth. Or maybe it could be someone, a neighbor, who builds a relationship, tries to build trust with the child, but uses and manipulates that relationship in such a way that they can end up either exploiting the child sexually or in many other ways. So that's the kind of thing that we are seeing as well. The issue also of human trafficking, as Dadera Matsusa has said, human trafficking means that it's an adult in this case who will move or transport the children unlawfully from their places of origin, from their families, by force, by coercion, or by any other way. But primarily the goal is to benefit, right? Through sexual exploitation, through selling them off as sex slaves, and so on and so forth. So these are the kind of things that we are seeing when we are talking about the issue of sexual exploitation of children. So when we look at exploitation itself, how it occurs, I think that Ndadera Matsusa has already said a lot. There could be forced child labor, human trafficking, prostitution, internet and pornographic exploitation of children. And very interestingly, there's a term that I picked up while I was busy doing the research for this topic. And the term here, Ndadera Matsusa, is called survival sex. In this case, it's not really rape as such, but this talks about women that are older, in terms of age, in terms of the law, but that are poor, right? And they have to use their bodies in order to get some type of survival from the men. So this is where sex is exchanged for things like giving you a bursary to help you to go through education at tertiary level, or sex is used for paying the rent at the end of the month. So this also, I want to put it there even though it's not, really what we are talking about. But I want us to see the predicament that our people, our ladies, our women find themselves in today. And I think at a later point, Datera Matos and you, Mandla, we need to ask critical questions. We need to ask critical questions as to why 30 years down the line, the position of a black woman in this country of ours is actually getting worse. Why is it that children and black women in particular are being exploited in this way? And I think we see that. I mean, you even see the trends sometimes when you're watching your social media platforms, the kind of dances that our women are made to do as a form of entertainment, right? Very sexual, gyrating movements of their hips and their buttocks. And these are our women, by the way, being uncovered, being made to do this kind of things. Some people press likes there, and whenever they press likes, what are we doing? We are saying to the young ones that this is the way you should go.
Seemingly the world seems to glorify all of that.
The world seems to glorify all of that, but here's the question. Why is it that the black woman is the one who's being undressed? And why is it that the black woman must be the one who entertains the whole men in the universe or wherever that way? Why is it not that other people of other races are doing that to their women? Right? Why is it that the black woman must be undressed and made to do this kind of dances in order for her to earn her place in society? It's all one thing if you think about it. I know some people will say, no, we've derailed. We are now talking about adults and all, but for me, it seems to follow the same thing.
Because if you look at it, Doc, yes, our subject is the exploitation of minors, right?
Yes.
And what the media seems to have done, coming back to the grooming, the grooming is no longer done by an individual in their own little corner. It has been taken to, the media platform, and there seems to be a general grooming of the women population of the world.
Yes.
And by that I'm trying to say what the youngsters are seeing in terms of the black woman dancing butt naked or whatever and so on. Isn't that a form of grooming without having individuals taking maybe a soul youngster and grooming them in their little corner?
Yeah, I would agree. You want to chip in there?
Yeah, look, the reality of the matter is that, Mandla, whatever that you consume you end up being that which you consume. Yeah. And the reality of the matter is that the society has now realized the things that we are now policing. And as a result, things have moved away from your traditional way of doing things. And what is it that I'm trying to say? What I'm saying is that ordinarily, we would think that children are groomed when they are put in a particular room by people and teaching them things that they have to do. And after a certain period of time now, they are being released into the society for them now to execute that which they have been taught. But now you now look at how the things have changed. They've changed in a sense that if you take a minute and look at the kind of TV shows that you have in the country, you would have a TV show that says, this body works for me. I'm not here to lambast any TV show, but it's the content that they now produce and bring into the society. And what kind of content are they bringing into the society? They are bringing the content that says, your traditional way of working, and by traditional way, I mean your 5 to... Your
8 to 5.
8 to 5, 9 to 5, and whatever. Now, you now see ladies who says, okay, fine, I'm living this better life.
Without having to really work hard.
Yes, I've got a body, and within this body of mine, this body will work for me. And then you now also have got other issues. I know people might be angry at me for saying this thing, that You open a TV, you see a man who has chosen to say, this is how I want to live. And you now know that the choice that he has made, he cannot procreate the way me and you would procreate. But 2 months later or a year later, you hear that that man has got a child. They've used technology and have requested the assistance of somebody to donate a womb for them. Now they are going to raise a child. Now, Mandla raises a child the way, or molds his children the way he wants them to be. Now, whoever has chosen a particular platform will also raises this child to be that particular way. Now, what is it that I'm saying, Mandla? I'm saying now, on what the doc has said, is that our media now has decided to say we are going to change things. And they have not told anyone that they are going to change things. And they are not making noise about how they are changing things. The unfortunate part is that there's no one who say, but this is really wrong. This is morally bankrupt. Now somebody would say, whose morals? You understand? But we know as people, Mandla, that we've got standard morals. You understand? Like we are saying now, we are not, as a podcast, trying to define how people must live their lives. But equally, we are saying some of the ways that they are living their lives have got an impact. Traditionally, we knew that if you would want, or as we were growing up, Doc,
yes, sir,
you would have your magazines that would be hidden under the mattress.
Yeah.
That would have explicit content. There would be videos that you would not ordinarily see this.
Packed away in the box somewhere.
Yeah, but today if you
think of a couple of names.
In the wardrobe.
But now, Mandla, if you go to X, which previously called Twitter.
Yeah.
Pornography there.
On your timeline, it's all over.
It's all over. And there's no one who speaks against that. Now, remember your children have got smartphones. You see? They don't need your permission to get into the smartphones. For all intents and purposes, they've got a Twitter account, which on the typing of a particular word, all those things come up, and then you're thinking that the child is in the bedroom studying and whatnot, whilst the child is being influenced
going through these things
by X. And you can't complain anyway. And no one calls that sexual grooming. Yeah. You understand? No one speaks about it as sexual grooming. But the reality of the matter is that now social media or social media is now showing your child or directing your child how he should live.
Yeah, let me just put it this way. I think from what you asked, Mandla, and what the attorney is saying, we are basically saying for the audience's sake, so that they can hear it clearly, that it is true, it is happening. There's an agenda where social media is moving the entire community in a certain direction. So the grooming, as you say, is no longer confined to my bedroom, but the grooming is actually much greater now. It enters into all bedrooms simultaneously at the same time at the push of a single button. And you can agree with me that that is even worse and more deadly.
Yeah. You know, when we go back into this whole people, you know, getting surrogate mothers and, you know, not being able to procreate the natural way and everything like that, I've seen that there is quite a number of celebrities that have adopted children, you know. They probably can have children, but it's just that, you know, they've got the financial means to go and, you know, adopt children from the less fortunate families and whatnot. And now you know that we've got all these acronyms, you know, it's no longer just male and female. People refuse to be called that. Yeah. They refuse to be boxed.
It, that, they, them, us. Yeah. And
one particular celebrity who comes from this country and is now in America has started dressing their two adopted boys as girls, you know, and you wonder why would a person do that? I mean, these are boys, and they're not at that age where they can say, you know, I'm neither this or that. But the mother now has decided to, you know, dress them in a certain way. You don't know whether they've actually decided to also steer their behavior towards being feminine or whatnot. What do you think about that? Does it?
Let me come in there, Mandla, because I think that this is very crucial. You see, when we are talking about the identity of a society, there's a national identity of a society, if I can put it that way, or a country or a people, and there's a personal identity. And I think that our personal identity should be driven from the national identity. In other words, in order for a community to exist, right, the greater good of the community has to come first, right? And my individual good has to be feeding into the dream, into the purpose, into the idea that that particular community has. So if we are seeing a situation where there's certain agendas that are being pushed, right, in terms of what we are seeing on the mainstream media, then you can see that there is a certain way of channeling people towards agreeing to a certain type of agenda, that now we have progressed, that now we have advanced, we've become more civilized, and what was considered wrong and taboo previously, we are now glorifying it, and we are saying this is now it. But I think that also speaks to one thing. I had a question saying, but what is wrong? What has gone wrong with society? And the answer, therefore, that I want to propose is that what has gone wrong with society is that there's been a complete eradication of moral and ethical values. Of course, Dade Ramaphosa has said, but whose standards? But you know what? There's always been an unwritten law, if I can put it that way, that exists in any society, be it primitive, be it whatever. There's always an unwritten law of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Right. So whenever in society we move away from our moral values, our standards and our norms in terms of who should engage with who, especially when it comes to the area of sex, where we realize that children are very, very, very young. They do not have the power intellectually to engage with that topic, even the power to understand in terms of what is happening. They've got raging hormones, especially when they hit puberty. They don't know what is happening. And it's quite easy for society, therefore, especially elderly people, to take advantage of that and use that. And I believe that it is the role of the society itself to go into that sacred space where we do not allow other members of society to use children for nefarious intents. Right? And Dade Ramaphosa.
Yes.
Now, I think also, therefore, it is also important to say that, especially us as Africans, there's this concept that I alluded to before, the concept of Ubuntu.
Yes.
Boto. I don't know for Westerners if they've got something similar to that, but us here in Africa, especially here in South Africa, the concept of Ubuntu is well known if you are a black person. How do we know it? I don't know, but we all know it. It was never written to us. It was never handed down to us in a tablet, in a stone tablet, or in a book, but every black African child understands what the concept of Ubuntu means. And when you look at it, this idea or this concept, at its core, at its very core, lies this: I am because you are.
You are, yes.
Right. I am because you are. And therefore that means what it says, that there has to be no harm. Do no harm. Because if you identify it and say, I am because Ramaphosa is, that means I cannot hurt Ramaphosa. Because without him, I am not. My existence is tied to him.
Yes.
So in other words, the relationship between adults and children, if it's positive, is where adults realize that this is our future. These are our children. We cannot exploit them, let alone allow other people to come into that space and exploit them. And I think this is what is missing. And I think this is what is wrong in our nation. And the other thing as well is that good men out there who are opposed to these things, the question is, what are we doing? Is it enough for me to say, but it is wrong for sexual exploitation to happen? But am I going into the community meetings? Am I going into other platforms to raise these issues? And I think that good men are not doing anything. And as a country, we've come to accept the abnormal, the aberration as normal. And that is what is twisted about the country in which we live today. We live in a very twisted, a very dark country where things that ought not to be accepted.
Age of 16 years. In terms of the law regards that particular person as a person who could not give you consent. So it means that whatever that particular you would have done, even if they had agreed to have sex with you, but the law says that they cannot give consent. They have taken away, or the law has taken away the power from them to can give consent. But now, there's something problematic about that particular part of the law, because now, if you look at it, when the two of them are 16 years of age and engage in sexual conduct, it becomes something that is problematic in a sense of...
They are both minors.
Both minors. How do you take action against that particular person? Now, what is it that it has done is that it has now extended to say it looks at the age difference. Let's say the other one is 14 years and the other one is 17 years. You understand? Now, he's 3 years older than this other one. Now it says, no, this one would have taken advantage of this other one. And then that's when this aspect of statutory rape kicks in and it's activated. But if they are of the same age or the age gap between the two of them, it's less than 2 years, it becomes problematic for the law to address it unless the other one has passed the age of 18 years, who's no longer a minor but a major person. You understand? But now, this is the problems that the law has created, according to me. To say, if you look at other jurisdictions, they have been very specific. Any engagement with sexual engagement with a person under the age of 18, they did not even put it into 16. So you say these people are minors in terms of the law, so you can't have any sexual engagement with them under the age of 18. But now here is the problem that the very same law creates. The very same law creates a problem that when a 14-year-old is pregnant and wants to do an abortion,
they don't need a consent.
Proceed with that.
They don't need a consent.
Without the parents' assistance or the parents' consent into that particular thing. Now you see you are creating a problem. You are saying a 14-year-old cannot give consent to sex, but when a 14-year-old
is pregnant,
you say, no, the 14-year-old can just take a decision with regard to the termination of that the unborn child.
Now, the people that actually put these laws together, do they actually interrogate them enough to see the effects of not being, being straightforward in a sense that, you are creating a law that is going to defeat the purpose of another law. You say these people are minors. They cannot buy alcohol. They cannot smoke cigarettes. They cannot do certain things, and they cannot engage in sexual activities. But if they are of the same age, they can do that. And then should one fall pregnant, they don't need the parents to help them in terms of decision making. So, I mean, those laws, they seem, to fluctuate and not necessarily address the problem areas.
Oh, here's a question, Mandla, because this is the STI month.
Yes.
And I watched one of the podcasts that you had with the Department of Health. And I think I've got a very interesting question. Perhaps if they are listening to this, if they are watching us, they would want to come and respond and listen to what I have to say. Maybe we'll be very interested to hear how they view this question and what would their response be. But here's the question that I then want to ask. Why give contraceptives, especially condoms, to people that are not lawfully allowed to engage in the act? Is that lawful for me to give a minor who's 15 years a condom and say to them, go use this.
Yeah.
But here's a tablet, go use this. When that minor actually is not even allowed to engage in that act.
You see, Doc, I think we also ought to be realistic about the society that we live in. And also then deal with this thing at this level. To say, if you criminalize sex between an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, who would ordinarily, body-wise, look the same, and maybe still mentally think the same. Why not criminalize it between a 15-year-old and a 15-year-old?
That's the question.
Now, I know some few years ago, there was a very interesting situation where children, I think it was in Soweto, they were caught in an act where they were having sex. Now, the mother of the girl rushed to the police station and opened a case against the boy. They were of the same age, I think, if not yet, of the same age. And there was hullabaloo all over about that particular incident. And fortunately or unfortunately, the father of a 15-year-old boy also went to the police station and opened a case.
That's madness, man. That's complete madness. What do you do in that case? That's complete madness.
Opened a case against that 15-year-old girl that she would have raped his son.
His son.
Yes. And he was correct. Because remember, no one wanted to listen. Or let's say the first one to react did not want to listen to what
the other side of the story.
This girl is saying. Were you raped or you agreed to have sex with him? Did you give, because rape, the thin line between it is consent. Did you consent to have sex with him? But now, in terms of the law, these two people cannot give consent to anyone.
It's nullified by the law.
You understand? Now, if you say your daughter has been raped, I'm equally in the same position to say my son has been raped, because he is also deficient in as far as it relates to the issue of giving consent.
Yeah.
But now, this is what I want us to now talk about. Doc said something, he asked a question but did not answer it. He says, what has gone wrong with our society? And then he then says on the same breath that for us to have an identity as people, we must have individual identity and the national identity. Is it? Now, our individual identity defines and determines the national identity. But the question that we ought to ask ourselves is that, do we have a national identity? We don't. You can go all over, ask everyone, Mandla, how do we identify ourselves as a society in South Africa? What is it that we stand for as a country? What is it that we believe in as a country? You understand? Because whatever that we believe in as a country will now run down into families and define what is it that the families will believe in.
Yes.
Now, the problem that we have, and the problem that no one wants to talk about, is that we have got the laws, like you are saying correctly, Soman, that allows everything. You understand? In 1996, when the Constitution was adopted, everyone was saying this is the best constitution in the world. Now, if you've got the law that everyone is praising, then you must know that there's a problem.
No, just to interject in there. Was it said by the people, or was that created? did the
I hear what you're saying.
yes, did the government not create that thing that
The
this
impression-
is the
the
impression that this is the best law in the world? It started punting that message, so everyone gets into that whole thing of saying that this is the best constitution.
Because it was not really interrogated by the masses.
You understand?
But who's the government?
The elected representatives of
It's
the nation.
definitely not the people.
No. Then it means there's a problem because the government is my apologies, because the government is us. We are the government, Mandla. You understand? Now without us, there's no government. You see? Now the laws that the government enact must be the representation of the views of the people. Now, if you say that these laws were now, we were now told that this is the best constitution, the question that we now have to ask ourselves is that, now that we are told, what is it that we did as the people? Now, somebody would say, no, we did not know. And that is why we've got fireside conversations. So that people must now start to ask these critical questions. Questions that seeks to say, but this constitution has abolished almost everything that we believed in and has accommodated almost everything. Because the reality of the matter, Mandla, is that there's no society that can allow everything to go and you think that is going to be a good society.
No ways.
No ways.
No ways.
You understand? Now we are speaking about child exploitations. There are laws that will be enacted. That you are exploiting children. This is what is happening. This is what is happening. This is what is happening. Let's take for argument's sake that in terms of the basic conditions of employment, you cannot employ a child who's under the age of 15 years. Or a child who has not yet reached the age in which maybe that particular child, in terms of the way things are done, should be out of the age of out of school age. You understand? So, but let me restrict it to 15 years so that everyone understands it. Né? But we've got children who are working who are under 15 years. But because they are working in the industries that excites us, we don't call that work.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
You understand? We don't call...
It's double standards.
It's double standards.
It is, certainly.
And you know why we call it double standards? It's because a person would come and say, no, this child only comes for 2 hours on set and goes. You see what is it that is happening now? So it means that they have now created an exception and an excuse. You see? And the very same problem that comes with the issue of sexual exploitation. You understand? When you know, also child pornography, it's prohibited.
Yes.
You see? But now, what do you do in a situation where you find 2 children are having sex and they film themselves?
Yay.
And they start to distribute that. Now, the exploitation part that we are talking about, Mandla, is that you now see, I think recently you would have seen, I did not follow that, then there was a young girl, I think she was 16 or 17 years. I think she was 17 years, who was trending in dating older guys who have got money.
Yes, I saw that, yeah.
And if you look at that child, she's very, very, very young. And the society was silent about calling that child out. Because everyone was saying, no, whatever that she did with Mandla, she would have consented on it because she is of consensual age. You see? They have not taken advantage of her. Now, let's ask ourselves again this question. When we are dealing with the issue of what has gone wrong, when we try to resolve the issue of the exploitation of children, was there any valid reason for us to reduce the age of majority from 21 to 18 years? Were there valid reasons for us to do that?
Was it not to perhaps benefit the very same people who are actually laying down the laws?
Now, that is what FYRSYD conversation has to take to the people, because we are here to ask critical questions and discuss critical issues by the side of the fire. When the fire burns us, we start to speak, man.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, as I conclude to talk.
Yes, sir.
On the absence of the national identity, we now had a constitution that, if you read it, what becomes of a paramount importance in every issue is the children's rights.
Yes.
They need not to be interfered with. They must be guarded. Now, what the government did was that when it protected the children, it took away the powers of the parents to how to deal with their children. Because when they gave the children the rights, unfortunately, they did not give them the responsibilities. And let me tell you why I'm saying that. And I want, the reason I'm raising these issues is to show you where the door was opened for people to take advantage of children. Mandla, I had a scenario of a child who's 17 years old who was staying with a boyfriend. And when the parents wanted to go and collect that child says, I'm not going anywhere with you. And the parents now wants to speak with the parents of the boy. And the parents of the boy, who's 18 years, says, no, it's none of our business. But these two children stays at the backyard. Now,
at the parents' home.
Yes.
Of the boy.
Of the boy.
You see? Now, the parents says, no, we can't do anything to them. Now, the mother and the father wanted to use maximum force. Immediately when they wanted to use maximum force, the child quickly reminded them, you touch me, I'll go to the police and open a case of assault. And this is where the problem is now. As soon as you assault that child, or you discipline, what used to be called discipline, let me not call it discipline, it's called assault now. As soon as you assault him as a parent, that child is going to open a case with the police. A case which, in terms of the laws, the minimum sentence, because it's going to be a matter that is dealt in the regional court, where you are going to get minimum sentence of anything not less than 5 years if you are convicted in prison.
As a parent.
As a parent who would have assaulted your child. Well, there are instances where it's not GBH, but remember on our last discussion you said, Mindlos, that when you are angry, some of the hormones, the hormonal imbalances risen and whatnot. You end up, because now your child is here, who's 17 years old, who in our language we're saying wakipita. You want to take her, she's refusing. One punch can tend to be assault GBH. Mm-hmm. Now they said, no, you wanted to kill the child. Now, the law says the interest of the child are of a paramount importance, and a child in terms of the law is somebody who's under the age of 18 years. But now, you are unable to can deal with a 17-year-old, you are unable to can even open a case of
kidnapping.
No, let alone kidnapping, because kidnapping is going to be problematic because she has consented, she does not want to leave. You cannot open a case of statutory rape against the boy. You understand? Because that girl is 17 years old. So you are left armless. You can't do anything as a parent. You just have to look. And it now becomes worse. It becomes worse. The very same child who has moved away from your house decides to say, I'm going to the maintenance court.
So you need to maintain her.
Yeah. Now she goes to the maintenance court and says, I want my father and my mother to maintain me. And the law allows her to can call for maintenance. What do you do in that situation, Doc?
That's insanity, man.
No, it's the law.
No,
you can't call it insanity.
That's insanity.
Jeez, this law seems to be the destruction of the human race.
Things are twisted backward.
Things are twisted backward.
Yeah, now, gentlemen, you know what? While I was listening to Ndadera Matsosa speaking in terms of the legal age of consent and all of that, she was speaking about minors, that they would look at the age, the gap difference between them. Here's something that I want us to think about, Ndadera Matsosa.
Yes.
You know, there's something that is termed precocious puberty.
Yes.
Precocious puberty refers to children that physically appear to be a lot older than their actual age, right?
Yes.
So let me give you this scenario, just to show you. You go to a soccer game, right? And you are watching there, you are going there with your 12-year-old to the trials. And lo and behold, sitting next to him is another child who's also said to be 12 years old.
Now, Manda, Manda, I'm going to get in. You see what the doc is saying? I see where he's going. This is also the problem that is raised by quite a number of men. When they have now dealt with children in a manner that they were not supposed to deal with children. I'll tell you what is it that I'm saying. And I'll always come back to this issue of the having allowed almost everything. When we wanted to protect, you take your child to a boarding school. Some of the boarding schools are in towns. You understand? Now these children, when they are in grade 11, grade 12, they start to be naughty. Now this child leaves school in the middle of the night, they go to a tavern. Now because she's curvaceous or he already has got beards.
Yeah.
You see, he gets into a tavern or a nightclub. Now Mandla sees this child. They start to have a conversation. They like each other. But Mandla, you can see this is a child. As you are conversing, I mean, simple language, hey man, where do you work? I think that's basically some things that we need to discuss. No, I'm not working. What are you doing? I'm attending school. That must be a red flag.
Same time there.
Already. But now you will find a man who would have slept with a 16-year-old child. Yeah? And later on says, no, but this child, look at her. You understand? When in essence, even things are much easier these days. After she gives you her names, you can even get into social media. Say, hey, what's your name in social media? I want to invite you. Predominantly, you'll find pictures of uniform. Even if you don't find pictures of uniform, you'll find a picture that she has posted in 2013 when she's at primary school. And you start to realize that, no, here I'm dealing with a problem. But the guys, they stay away from those preliminary checks. And then later on, they say, no, what do you call it, doctor? Pre-what poverty?
Precocious puberty.
And they raise that particular aspect to defend themselves on aspect of sexual exploitations of children. You understand? In essence, that is why, Mindlos, now for me, I feel that any man of my age, of Doc's age, and your age, must find it awkward to sleep with a child that was born when they had already done matric. Yes, that child is old enough to be your child.
Yeah, certainly.
Because ordinarily when we were doing matric, most of us were 18, 19.
And people that went to school with us, some of them impregnated, the girls.
Their age groups around that particular.
So if you can already do that, a child that's more than 12 years younger than you, you stay away from that.
And as I conclude on this point, some of the people would also hide behind the issues of culture, like I had earlier on said. Remember? I don't know whether there's this principle that the Constitution has already declared it to be unconstitutional. Fortunately, there was some progressive movements from our laws, which was called ukutwala, where you would find out that a man would just see a child who's very young, and the lawyers called it kidnapping, and I like it, takes that particular child and puts her into his house, and then now sends people to the child's house to say, no, I want to marry
this child.
To marry this child. Yes.
Yeah,
No, even though Ushubedisa is much better, because Ushubedisa, I think you would have agreed. But Ukutwala, it really means the way.
Put on your shoulder, take it home.
But the reality of the matter is that all these exploitations, man, they don't happen in a vacuum. They are done by the people that are known by Doc, that are known by you, Manda, that are known by me. And worst part, you see, in most instances, we think that these things are done by people who are uneducated. In other instances, they are done by professionals, educated, people who are respected in our society, and we also need to call them out. And just because it's Dr. Kumar who's doing this thing, we're not calling him out because he is the local doctor and he's treating us. You understand? We don't call him out. And then because Doc comes to this podcast and shows us a picture of a child who's 16 years old and say, yeah, look at these calves. And we don't call him out. And we think that whatever that we are doing is not exploitation because we become the catalysts to him continuing with his behavior. Because once we call him out, he will not come again and show us those pictures. And if he goes to the other people and they also call him out, then it means we're going to bring an end to this thing. Equally, Mandla, these kids, when they come to taverns, because in other instances, guys would want to blame these children. To say, you don't know these children. They are the one who came. But if I know Mandla and I know Mandla's child, and I know that Mandla's child was born in 2016, or I know that Mandla's child should not be 16 years old. If I see Mandla's child in a tavern, I must call Mandla's child out. But again, we are afraid to call them out. Because after you call that particular child out, and she says, what are you going to do? And worst part, the next thing, goes to the house and says to his parents, sure. And you, Mandla, the moment your child says, you will come running and you are not even going to ask questions. You will be telling Ntate Kumalore, you continue to do what you are doing to my child, I'm going to kick you. And Ntate Kumalo will think that you are going to kick him for reprimanding the child from not coming to a tavern. Because you are not coming to have a conversation. You are coming to reprimand Ntate Kumalo.
Now, guys, let's say this to our audience at large, that as a man, don't ever look at a child just simply by looking at the body, that she's curvaceous. As they say, opakile.
Yes.
She's got all the right curves, yes, in all the right places.
Yes.
Hey, Matida, you will get into trouble.
Exactly.
Let me tell you something. Precocious puberty can happen to a girl who's as young as 8 or 9 years old. Right? She will be 8 or 9 years old with other 8 or 9 year olds, and she'll be the tallest one in the class.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
She'll be having breasts, because those things are physiological changes that happen in her body. But lo and behold, the mind itself is of a 9-year-old.
Exactly.
But the body is of a 13 or 14-year-old.
Exactly.
So the point that I'm making here is not to excuse men, but is to teach men to say that when you see a child of school-going age, like Ndadera Matsosa says, don't think that, no, this one is so big, she's got curves in all the right places, she must be in matric, therefore I can now go and exercise whatever I have to exercise and benefit. You could be dealing with someone who's 13 years old. I know recently, I took my kids to trials, they were playing there, and they were playing with their age mates, But some of these guys, some of these boys are huge, taller than me. Yeah, taller than me. And I'm talking about kids who are about 12 years old here. And you're looking at this boy, and you want to go and complain to say, but you can't make my boy play against this boy.
But it's the same age.
But it's the same age. Right? And you can see when he runs physically, way stronger than them. Powerful, dominant. And that's how the biology sometimes works, right? That's how the biology sometimes works. And we cannot condemn that child and say, no, now you must go and play with 16-year-olds. Similarly, the girls as well, they also go through the same thing. And unfortunately, like you say, guys, we like to use the excuse, but we like to say, no, but you know how much she be the dog? You know she's got breasts, you know she's got calves, she's beautiful. No, this person has musadi.
But again, Doc, I think we must also come back to the issue that you raised earlier on. You raised an issue of instances of survival sex. We know that survival sex it's predominant.
Just before you get into that one, survival sex, there's something that I've actually picked up, especially in our townships, with young girls who come from not so well-off families, right?
Yes.
There's a huge number of them that gets taken advantage of by the spaza shop owners.
Exactly.
Give them bread here, things that they can use to make a light meal, whatever, and so on. And the parents are aware of that, The parents are aware of that, so this whole thing in advocate is very disturbing. And I feel even the adults in the families are actually doing the children an injustice.
Yes. Yes.
And how do we go about,
No, let me ask you this, Mandla. As a parent of a 15 or 16-year-old, you know very well that you don't have the money to buy her expensive turkeys. Right? You did not buy her that expensive dress, that cell phone that she has. But your child keeps on coming with these things. She even buys you KFC and brings KFC to you. And you are a parent and you are indulging in these things. Should the law not also find you guilty? Because you are complicit in the act. So whatever you are saying, Mandla, again, for me, it speaks to the position of a black person, right? Where people who are predominantly taken advantage of is always people who are poor, people who lack education. They don't know the rights that they are entitled to in terms of the law. So these are people that are targeted, right? And in some families, that girl is the only source of income, right? Because that day, they would not have anything to eat except what she brings through into that family. And the girl might herself, she might know that what she's doing is not right, but she's thinking that's the only way that my younger brother and my younger sister are going to eat. Because remember, we have a lot of child-headed households in South Africa. And there's a lot of orphans as well in South Africa. And here in South Africa, by the way, people don't just do you favors, right?
No.
They expect something in return.
No such thing as a free lunch.
There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? So if I see a girl coming to me, now I'm going to take advantage of that girl. But behind that girl may be a very depressing and sad story. You might have a girl who is the eldest in the family. She's 16 years old. She may have had to leave school so that she can look after 2 younger brothers or 2 younger siblings that she has at home. Because the mom is dead and the father also has passed away. The uncles and the aunts have left them like that. And this is where I'm saying that as a people, as a society, where have we gone wrong? Because today, we are living in a society where the only people who matter in my life, Mandla, it's me, my wife, and my children. I couldn't care less about you. Hence, if you come to me and want to report something, I'm so hostile, right? Because we are living in a society that has changed the narrative where we as Africans, we understand that every child in the village is your child. And I want to believe that in the good old days in Africa, this problem of bafana ba robala mo ditrateng and ba robala mo le, the street kids. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
Because should your father pass away, actually you are told that Rangwan wa hao, ke ntate wa gago. It's his duty. Yeah, it's his duty to take care of his brother's children. Am I not right?
Yeah, no,
so these are some
fact.
of the things. And I know that other people say, but no, there were other things that were going on in that setup where the uncle now felt that even the wife belonged to him. I know, we can discuss those things. But what I'm trying to say is that generally, we are no longer a caring society. We don't care enough for those people who are most vulnerable in our society.
You know, I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about survival sex, ne? But then I want to just backtrack to, young girls and young men going to taverns and so on. Now, Doc, you come to me as a brewery, you are asking for a license to trade in alcohol, right? And I give you my rules and regulations to say that you cannot serve alcohol to kids underage and whatnot. Not only serve it to them, but they are not allowed in your
that
environment, in your establishment,
yes.
right? But we see owners of such establishments allowing these kids to come and sit there, and they know these kids grew up, right under them. And how do we deal with that case? Because now I think the brewery and the owners of taverns and whatnot, they not really, they've just been given the law and then they're not really attending to it. So how do we deal with both the breweries and
Look, Mandla, even before you get to the level of the breweries and the tavern owners, I think that we all remember that said case. I don't remember what it was called. Yes, that sad story of all those miners who passed away in very suspicious and very tragic circumstances. They went to an establishment where people consume alcohol, dance all night, and enjoy themselves. And no one there was able to identify, but these kids, man, these are just kids, right? Some of them were very, very young. And this is why I'm saying that there is something fundamentally wrong with our society. Because, like you say, some of those children, when they left, their parents had not given them consent, right? They left under suspicious, conditions. Some of them parents didn't even know that their children were going there. But when they get there may be other people, neighbors, other guys in the community who say, but I know this one. It's Mandla's child. They went. What are you doing here? But then, if the law does not empower you as Mandla to call out such a child in that establishment and say, no, why not go back home? You see, that's where we are missing the opportunity to can effect change and perhaps save lives. Because if we are all folding our arms and say, but it is their right, they have a right to choose, and we don't understand. So these are the things that we as people of South Africa need to question ourselves to say, our moral standards, our humanity, Ubuntu, where have they gone? Why should I allow a child who's 12 years old or 13 years old to walk around with a beer bottle drinking, and I don't mind as long as it is not my child? Is that really correct? Is it right?
But the reality of the matter, Doc, goes back to the issue that you earlier on spoke about, the issue of identity. Remember, I'm going to try to deal with these two things, Mandla.
Yes.
Number one, the issue that relates to this one that you are raising, to say you find a situation where there's a person who's dealing with economic conditions, because a person who's running a business will tell you that I'm running a business here. I'm not
Running a charity.
Yeah, and also it's none of my business. If these people come here and buy alcohol and says they are over 18 years, who am I? I mean, you want me now to go back to the Dompas area and demand from any patron that comes here, no, produce an ID, or you don't enter my establishment. Now, the reality of the matter is that there are situations and instances, Manda, in this country, where people would have seen children wearing school uniform in the streets with alcohol. Now, the question that now follows is that these children, they don't carry this alcohol or drink it in secret places. They drink it in public. Now, you now ask yourself a question, what is it that law enforcement has done? And after asking yourself that particular question, what is it that law enforcement has done, you then have to ask yourself the second question as to, does law enforcement has the powers to can do anything in that situation? Who are you going to arrest in that situation? Let's say, for argument's sake, you want to blame a person who's owning a tavern for children who are carrying alcohol in the street, and this person says, no, but this alcohol, even if I can show you cameras, there's no child who came to this establishment and bought alcohol, including those children that are outside drinking this alcohol. Now, you'd find out that these children, they have used dog. Dog is an old man who does not work. They come and say, Takumalo, born, Rebata case sepedi, 250, 500, 600, 100 rand. Now, Tamandla now goes into the tavern, buys that alcohol, and gives it to these kids to go and drink it. How are you going to hold the tavern owner responsible? How are you going to hold the brewery responsible
for such an act?
For such an act.
Because the person who defeated justice here is this guy.
There are enablers. There's always enablers.
Yeah.
Over and above the issue of enablers, there's also parents who are enablers. And why do I say parents are enablers? Because you'd find out that Mandla gives his child 100 rand every day for lunch. And at school, whatever that they are selling, at maximum he can spend 50 rand. The other 50 rand, what is it that he's going to do with it? Nothing. Now, they grow up with that mentality. Now, I'm talking about enablers. Remember, I've now spoken about Tamandla, who's an enabler, in as far as the abuse of alcohol by the kids, when even precautionary measures could be taken by law enforcers. But let's now assume that the police now finds these kids and take them. And when they get to the police station, they realize that they are under 16. Or even worse, they are still minor children. In terms of the law, you cannot transport them at the back of a police buggy. So how are you going to carry them from point A to point to the police station? It also becomes problematic. Now, you now move again to the issue that you had spoken about of these guys who own shops, also enablers, who would now be giving bread to these kids and nice things to these kids. Then later on, then they must pay with their body. Not only, let's for a moment leave these guys who own stock shops and talk about the Mandla who stays in the same street, who sees this child growing up and sees now that this child has now developed hips, flat stomach, twin towers. And starts to greet this child. Now wants a WhatsApp number of this child. This child says, no, I don't have a phone. It's Dr. Kumalo. Buying a phone of 10,000 rand for him, it's nothing. It's the money that you...
It's not me literally. That's an example, by the way. Not me literally.
It's the money that you would ordinarily make in a day. Ne? What is it that he now does? Because he knows Johannesburg. Goes to Johannesburg, buys an iPhone at this iStores, which is a second-hand, but...
the open box ones, yes.
The open box ones, yes, man. That's what they call them. But it's still brand new. Comes with that iPhone 12 or whatnot. He got it in this second-hand store of iPhone with 10,000 rand. Says, I don't want to struggle in wanting to chat with you. Here is your iPhone. Stays in the same street with this child.
Yeah. Now
this child has an iPhone. Later that day, he's excited, sends him a message, and then Tamandla says, or Tasipo, because you don't want me to personalize. Tasipo says to this child, take a picture, let me see how this iPhone looks. The child takes a picture. Says, no, I don't want that one. I want you when you are wearing your PJs. The child takes the picture. From the PJ, says, no, I don't want you to see those twin towers. Huh? This child is excited at the iPhone. Takes those pictures, sends them to Tasipo. Now, Tasipo starts to pick up that, hey man, the underwears that this girl is wearing, they are cheaper. Says to her, hey man, send me your size, I'm going to get you nice underwears. Goes to Small Street in Johannesburg, buys the ones of brands in Small Street.
Mtobolo.
Sure. And gives them to this child.
My goodness.
Eh? And this child now starts to see Tasipo as a good guy.
Life changer.
Now, in a space of 2 weeks, Tasipo would have spent 20,000 rand on this child and invites this child to a cheap hotel in town or a 200 rand guest house in town. Says, no, I want you to come give me massage. I want to see you wearing that thin life that I bought you. And this child pays with her body. You see? And he keeps on giving him 100 rands to eat at school. So that's exploitation. But before it became sexual exploitation, Tasipo exploited the situation, the socio-economic background of this child, because he would have known that they are struggling at her house. Now, one thing that we need to ask ourselves as Majida is to say, but if this was to happen to my child that I love, a girl child, how am I going to feel? If I were to suffer the same fate of this children's parents, get retrenched, and somebody
did this to my child,
do this to my child, how am I going to feel? And if you are not going to be excited, know that there's another person who is a parent to that child who's not excited at the situation. Now, the reason this guy's body tag shoppers also now jumped the bandwagon is because when they came here, they realized that we have turned our people into commodities, more especially women. And again, maybe somebody must say this thing to our women, that, guys, please, it's not only you who are struggling. Even guys are also struggling. Let it not be that you want to end your poverty with your body. Because that is where exploitation comes in. And that is where the grooming starts. Because some parents, and we must also call them out, Mindlos, there are parents
certainly
who would say to a child, hey, I've seen abutmandla wa go rata more ore tsamoko pa borotho go ene. That is wrong. It's grooming, and we never call it by that name. That this is grooming, because you now start to teach this child at a younger age
to use their body.
That no, if you want something to a man, offer your body, then definitely you are going to get that. And this then leads to a stage where now men don't offer you anything, then people cry rape.
Gee whiz. You know what? That's very deep. Ibhlungu, Doctor, ibhlungu kakhulu, because now, when you look at the situations that our young girls find themselves in, you can't help but, feel like your hands are held back by the law. Not only the law, but even the elderly people in those families. because now they are thinking with their stomach. And you cannot throw the law at the stomach when it's grumbling, you know? You know, I think that some drastic measures need to be taken because the abuse of young women and children is not only a source of distraction for them, you know. When it happens over a period, it becomes a norm, which is something you were saying earlier on, that we have allowed terrible things to be part of the fabric of the society which we are, you know, and we cannot just let things be.
No, we can.
We need to act. Yeah. Yes, we are having a conversation about these things, not only to just air these things out. You know, at the end of the day, we want, you know, action to be taken. You know, not only by people who are going to be viewing this thing on YouTube or whatever social media platform, you know, but also ourselves. You know, we need to really work on some workable mechanisms that can actually see to the change of the situation that we find ourselves in.
But Mandla, what is it that we can do as a society?
You know,
let's say somebody's listening to FYRSYD.
Yes.
Says, I have heard you, Doc. I have heard you, Mandla. I have heard you in that Ramatsos. But you are telling us the problems. What is the solution? I'm here. The only thing, like I've said to you, I've seen people on TV. I want to be on TV. I've seen people on TV show that says, this body works for me. And all that these people are doing, they say this body works for me, is that they are selling their body and they are now celebrities. I also want to be a celebrity. So for me to be a celebrity, I must also go sell my body.
Yeah, that instant gratification.
And somebody, this girl says to you, Emon, there's a girl, Koskolo, has got the latest techies. It's got the latest phones. It's got all these things. She's 17 years old. Because she's dating Nadera Matsusa, who's a lawyer, who gives her these things. Now, I also want to get myself a sugar daddy. You see? And I pick up this girl from the gate of her house, to an extent that I even raise my hand when I pick her up to greet the father, who's sitting there in front of the door, who's unemployed. And the reason that man cannot call me out, it's because every time when this girl comes, I had went to a store, bought a grocery with 500 rand. Now she's a breadwinner.
Yes.
She comes with this grocery to the house. Now, the mother has said to the father, so how do we empower that man who's listening to us today, who says, I want to act, but I have been castrated by my inability to provide for my family as a result of the socio-economic conditions of this country?
You see how interdependent these things are. Now, that's gender-based violence against men. Because that man has been castrated by the woman.
It is real. And it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening because how many times have men tried to speak out against the behaviors of their children, especially the girl child? And he was told, no,
You know, I saw recently, there's a TV show that I was watching. This guy's got a child, but it's a story, but it's the reality of the matter. The child is misbehaving, totally misbehaving, Mitlos. To an extent that as a father, he slept with that child. And the child went to a room. Hardly 20 minutes, the police arrived. Said, no, we are here to collect the suspect. Now they say, hey, man, no, you have mistaken. You have came to the wrong house. And the child gets out of the bedroom and says, no, I'm the one who called them. You just assaulted me. And we're not saying parents must assault their children. That's not what we are saying, Minders. All that we are saying is that we are talking about all these forms of exploitations, but there's an enabler of all these exploitations.
And it's always the person that's supposed to protect the child.
Now that the enabler is there, how do we cure it? You understand? I mean, for argument's sake, let's then ask the people, the authorities, as to, but how did we get to a stage where everything is accessible and anything is accessible on your fingertips, including the issues of pornography? We can't shy away from the day we are able to cap things such as pornography. It's the day that we will be, because if your child is exposed to sex at 12 months, they start to think about this thing. You understand? They start to, by the time they reach 14 years, it's not unlike us. With us, dog, the pressure for us to engage in sexual intercourse was the pressure that was from our peers. And they were telling us about something that we did not know. You understand? Now when they say to your child that sex is like this, if your child does not understand, they go to Twitter and then say, hey, you see how they do it. You must also do it. And you are not there as a parent. You understand? It is not like there are no powers for those things to be restricted, to be accessible. You understand? You watch the stories now. If you want to be in trouble, I mean, we know recently there was another story that I'm not going to mention its name. It's a South African story where there was explicit sins.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's extreme. You know. Now imagine you are sitting with your children, and that sin comes into. That sin now comes on.
You know, the sad thing, advocate, is that with the very same program that you're talking about, it will be an adult who has children. Let's say they're not watching with the children, but they will take that clip, which is exciting for them, and then they'll just take that clip and then post it on other social media platforms and say some things about them, you know, and talk about how exciting those scenes are and everything like that. And they have a child who is impressionable. And because these children are on social media,
exactly,
they may not have access to what the parent has posted, but then it may be reposted by other people, and then it ends up in the child's timeline. Yeah, you can carry on.
Now, in such a situation, how, even if you, let's say for argument's sake, you say to your child, no, or you change the program, it's too late. Because these kids, I mean, I normally hear Dr. Kumar say, my son helped me, whatnot. They, when it comes to technology, they are way above us.
Yeah.
You say to them, go to the bedroom, hey man, they look at it, they will even screen grab it and send it to their friends. You've not cured anything. With you, you saw it once. But now, that evening, they will see it 10 times. You understand? Now, it's a seed that is planted in their heads.
Yeah.
Now, when you find your child watching that thing, even if there's PG, 18 years, if you find your children watching it, what are you going to do to them? Because the worst part about it, Mindlos, you know, when we were growing up, when our parents were unable to discipline us, they would always go to school. And teachers would intervene where our parents are failing.
Yes.
These days, who do you go to?
No answer.
When things are falling apart. Maybe that's the question that we need to ask as FYRSYD. Where must we go when things fall apart? Let's say I'm aware that my 17-year-old child is being exploited by my neighbor who's 19 years old, or who's 21 years old, who has just completed his 3-year degree and is now working. Where do I go? Where do I report that guy? What do I say to that guy? If I go to him and I say, leave my child, and then he says to me, what am I going to do? And when I get home, the child says, Papa, stop interfering with my friends. What am I going to do?
Because you can't discipline either of them.
What am I going to do?
It's a sad reality. It really speaks to a confusion, right, that has engulfed the society in which we live, where seemingly laws have been enacted, but the people that are affected by these laws, people did not foresee the kind of ramifications that these laws would have in the broader society, whether they are indeed practical or not. So I think that, in order for us to change the narrative of our people, where we are going as a society, we need to come up with a new type of leadership, right? That speaks to the core values, the core essence of humanity. People who want to see the best out of every one of us. And for us to do that, Mandla, effectively, Dade Ramathosa, I would argue that it's all good and well for us to sit here and talk about these things using our big English and all of that. But if there is no tangible change, right?
Number one, we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our children from the society that we grew up in.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Now, with me, I still feel we must just go back 30 years ago and correct the wrongs that we did 30 years ago.
Of course.
And one of the wrongs that we did 30 years ago was to think that as a country we are going to please everyone. It's not going to work. And all these ills that we are crying for, and I'm not apologetic about this one that I'm saying, man, is that the rot that came to our children started when our government says that our children must not pray at school. The entire rot. Growing up, I don't know about you, Doc. I went to school with guys who were older than some of the teachers who were teaching us. But they called those teachers bominiere. They respected those teachers, notwithstanding the fact that they were older than those teachers. You understand? The teachers had control over everyone there, to an extent that they would even discipline those guys. But now, then our government said, okay, fine, kids must not pray at school. And our prayer was just assembly. I don't know the impact that it had. But what I know for a fact is that we were disciplined. There would always be unruly elements, but we were disciplined. You understand? No child would raise his hand upon a teacher. But in a democratic dispensation, we have seen instances where teachers were killed by learners.
I mean, when was it? As recently as last week, a 13-year-old shot a principal.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a primary school child.
Exactly. Now, you ask yourself a question as to, but when did we reach this stage? What is it that we have done that is wrong? And again, something that I'm going to call out. Our government has created a dependency mentality upon our people.
On it.
And because they want to control our people. Now, for you to control people, they must depend entirely on you.
On you.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yes. Now, our government prides itself. I read something that recently that there are about 21 million people who are on grants. And 7 million, I don't know how true is it, I did not verify it, 7 million taxpayers. Now, you see what is it that it has done. And this is now the other exploitation that comes into our children through financial exploitation. You exploit them using finances. You understand? Now, everyone, our people stands on queues between the 1st and the 7th of the month to receive grants, which cannot even take them halfway through the month.
Yeah.
You understand? Our government is silent about the township economy that has been taken by people who are not from this country.
Yes.
When you say those things, Mandahati, you are xenophobic. When you are raising critical issues to say, the very same thing that we are talking about, this guy would have a tuck shop in this house. You see? He has rented, he knows that he's giving those people 1,000 rand to rent that room where he has got a shop.
And they're using the same 1,000 rands to buy food from his puzzle.
No. He does not even give them the 1,000 rand. Throughout the month, he gives them food on credit. At the end of the month, they have got a deficit. They owe him. He's not the one who owes them. You see, now he start to call the shots. When the girl child comes here because he does not have a girlfriend or a spouse here, who's 15 years old, he now gives that particular child, when they come for and take one tin fish on credit, he gives that child another tin fish with a loaf of bread, and these ones are yours. Later on, now this child is going to pay with her body. And no one talks about these issues. Our leaders are silent about these particular issues. Our judiciary is silent about these issues. The pastors are silent. No one preaches about these things.
Community leaders.
Community leaders are silent about these issues. It's only when somebody wants something that they would raise these issues. Once they get that thing that they wanted, now they don't talk about it anymore. You understand? Now, I think the people who are listening to this podcast must now start to ask critical questions. But the other problem that people are afraid to ask critical questions, Manda, is that the reality of the matter is that once I have spoken out, because there's a duty upon me when I see abuse to report it. Once I've reported that abuse on a child, and the abuser is arrested, Nadera Masusa goes to court and uses technicalities and gets the abuser out. And I'm now vulnerable to the abuser, and abuser says, I'm coming for you. And no one is protecting me at that stage. That's also the reality that we are living in as a country. That is why everyone is silent. And that is why, Amanda, we have moved away from our people, because you cannot do anything, you cannot say anything. If you don't believe me, go to the place that you grew up and call out all these things that are happening and listen to the society ostracizing you, say now because you are a doctor, you think you are brilliant more than any other person in the township. You see? That's the problem that we are confronted with.
No, it's fine. Gentlemen, I think that, we've spent a bit of time on this thing, and it's not sufficient to interrogate it in its entirety, But I think, the things that we have highlighted, they're quite important. Are there any signs that, because honestly, I don't think that we have the powers right now to deal with this thing unless the laws change. I think that's the biggest problem, But because we want to help those who need help and want to be helped, are there any signs that you think that parents should look out for in terms of, picking up if there is a problem with their girl child, if the child is being exploited sexually or otherwise,
Yes. Sexual exploitation of children is a very terrible sin. It's a very terrible act that we can allow as a society. Signs can be there, Mandla, but also it depends on, are we sensitive to what is happening in the lives of our children? Do we pay attention to our children? Do we see when the child is suddenly withdrawing, the child suddenly has got temper tantrums, suddenly is out of control, or the child is always crying. For some reason, you don't know why the child is crying, but you're not engaging with the child. You're not asking the child what is going on. Or maybe the child complains about Mandla, and I feel that, no, man, why is she complaining about Mandla? No, you are a naughty little girl. You are full of stories. Or the child is complaining about uncle so-and-so, and because we are all dependent on him, we now go against the child to say, no, why is she always like this? She's the naughty one. But I think also, to take it there, Mandla, the act of rape itself, it is a very violent act. And it is a reflection of the broader violence that exists within our society. Remember that during that act where an individual rapes another person, you've got someone who enters into a body of a young child or enters into a body of a woman without consent. And in that relationship, we are having a relationship that is based on power, where one feels that I can have gratification from this person. And now what does that mean? You are dehumanizing that person to a lesser human being whose only purpose and existence in this world is to gratify you and to make you happy. And that's what we need to speak to also as people, to say that we need to see the type of mentality that exists in our society, that this thing happens because we enable those who perpetrate. Because us ourselves, we are always looking as to what can we benefit out of everything. And unless people realize that the act of rape itself, as violent as it is, but it is a mirror reflection of the broader violence that exists in our society. So for us to be able to handle this kind of issues, we need not only to speak to the individual, but we also need to speak to the society through the type of messages that we are receiving on TV, the type of programs that are being shown on TV. Do they speak to this kind of problems that we are talking about? Are we putting people there on TV who seemingly have become successful by selling their bodies, right? And are those the type of role models that we want for our children, right? Or do we need to teach our children to say, listen, success for me as Dr. Khumalo came after I completed my 6 years of intensive study. I had to work hard.
And in fact, I don't think we should phrase it like that, Doc, because success, understand, has stages.
Yes, sir.
You moved from grade to grade to grade.
Yes.
So you've been succeeding all of your life.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Financial freedom is something else.
Yes, sir.
You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But success,
Yeah.
it's in stages.
It's
and
true.
people should understand that every goal you achieve, you need to set another one, because you cannot sit on that one and say you've reached the level that you want to be at. You know, I think those are just basic principles that we need to inculcate in our society.
Yeah, but Mandla, you know what I'm saying, my brother? I'm saying hard work pays.
Yes.
And this is a fundamental principle of life. It has been true for Adam when he was kicked out of the garden. He was told to go and work. Right? It was true for Adam.
Yeah.
It's still true for us today.
Yes.
We understand. Mandla, you cannot hope to go and pluck fruits from a tree that you did not plant.
But that it goes back, Doctor, to what I had earlier on said.
Yes.
That the problem that we are confronted with now is that whatever that Mandla is talking about has been substituted with instant, because we're now living
instant gratification
in a society that wants things now. And as a result, that's where sometimes it also becomes problematic for one to say parents should look at 1, 2, 3, 4 as the signs for exploitation of a child, more specifically sexual. And I'm going to say it this way. For argument's sake, you find out that in other instances, children are not groomed by foreigners. They are groomed by people, either sisters, cousins, and whatnot, those who are close to them. The person comes and says to Mandla, can I please go with Lebo to Johannesburg? We are going to a party of my friend. You understand? Or we are visiting whoever that we are visiting, when in reality, they are coming to me. I have invited her and I said, no, bring that. I've seen that girl that you are with. How old is she? No, she's 17 years. No, come over with her. Now, when you are this other one is an 18-year-old, takes this other one, starts to teach her all these things. When they get back, when they come back from Johannesburg, they come back home. Now, this girl already has got sneakers. Ne? And now, the parents ask, even at these days, parents don't even have the time to even ask. They don't even ask us to, but where do you get this expensive sneakers? Let's assume that there's still a family that still gets concerned as to say, but we did not buy you this sneakers, we did not buy you this thing, we did not buy you this thing. It will not always go far. You will find out that it's Mamang who left with me is the one who bought me these things. You understand? Now, I think it also becomes very problematic for one to now diagnose and prescribe to say 1, 2, 3, 4 becomes the signs. Now, the next thing, you are even unable to call out your child, because what happens is that always she will be coming and say, "Oh, mama," or "Bona, look at this girl, more Instagram, she's trending, she's now an influencer." And comes back and say to you when you ask her, "No, where do you get this thing?" And "No, they've paid me, I'm an influencer." What are you going to do? Because in most instances, this influencing them, maybe next time we must discuss this influencing them, because we look at the spirit behind this influencing. Who are you influencing, and with what powers are you influencing these people? Because there's also a problem. All these things that we are discussing as problematics, influence as problems, influence it's the foundation of all these things, because people just want to be influencers.
No, gentlemen, you know what? I think that, just an opinion from my side. Again, the government and the laws that they have put down, they don't seem to be working in synergy towards achieving the objectives that they set out to achieve initially when they put the laws down, I think that, Advocate, you'll advise on this one. When the law does not work for the country it's supposed to serve, where do we go, Doctor? What do we do? Because you cannot discipline your child. You cannot question people that are abusing your child. The law is always working against you as a parent.
As a parent, as a concerned parent.
As a concerned parent. In fact, it's also working against the very children who are being taken advantage, because they will never realize it, until it's too late. Some of these influencers, you find that they achieve a certain level of success, and afterwards, because the nature of the entertainment industry is they chew you up and they spit you out. And at the end, they find themselves empty. And only then do they realize that I fell into the trap of being abused. So what do we do now? Because we know that the government is not for the children, for the parent, or the citizens of the country. How do we apply for the laws to be changed?
You need an active citizenry.
Yeah.
You need an active citizenry. You need a citizenry that says, enough is enough. We are fed up of what is happening in our country. We want things changed. We want powers to be given back and handed back to the family, to allow fathers and mothers who are of good standing, who have got good ethical values, to be able to make sure that they can put into place corrective measures that can allow for the children to change for the better. And unless we empower parents to do that, by the way, because remember that the macrocosm of what is happening in the broader society is the family. The family is the one that breeds leaders, doctors, nurses, thought leaders in society. So the minute we lose the unit of the family, and we lose the power there to change and correct ill behaviors at that stage of the family, I think there's no other way, and it will be too late. We will be reactionary, and we will never be able to change the life of a child. I think the most influential person in the life of any child are your parents or your immediate legal guardians. And if we want to really change this as citizenry, we need to go back to the lawmakers and say what powers were stripped from us that castrate us as men, as leaders within our families, to effect change for the better in our children.
Okay. No, great stuff. I think, gentlemen, we can just not necessarily end the topic. I feel that there's a whole lot more that we need to talk about. Just for the sake of time, I think we've given people something to ponder, think about, so that we can, give them an opportunity to interact with us further, so that we can see how to take this subject further and see how we can actually assist the society and uplift our people. Yeah, thank you for joining us again. It was rather interesting, but a very somber one, I must say, because the future it lies in the hands of the children.
That's true.
And by destroying our children, that says something else about our society in its entirety. Yeah. So thank you for joining us, Advocate Doctor.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll be back again next time, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and people certainly want to see us sit around and interrogate different subject matters. To our viewers out there, we thank you for your support. Please like and subscribe on our various social media pages. Also, click on the little bell so that you can get a reminder of when our next episode is coming up. We would like to thank La Floza Guest House for actually giving us a place where we can host our podcast. It's a very nice place indeed. It's based in Klerksdorp. When you find yourself needing a place to rest, whenever you are visiting Klerksdorp, even if you are from Klerksdorp, just come pay them a visit, Just one more thing. If you want us to discuss certain subject matters, you can reach us on our WhatsApp line at 079-612-5936. You can also send us an email at info@FYRSYD.co.za. That's info@FYRSYD.co.za. And we look forward to actually giving you another exciting episode. Till then, stay blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.